Hey, what's going on, fellow nerds? See Monty checking in with you guys for Nerd Era, where nerd culture reigns supreme. I'm here to talk to you about episode 2 of The Flash, which premiered last night. Flash comes on Tuesday nights at 8. So just like the series premiere first episode, I felt this was very strongly done. I feel this is a strong series straight out the gate. I like it a lot. You know, Flash is probably one of my favorite characters from DC, so that probably has a lot to do with it. I'm kind of biased. But it was a very strong, solid episode. It dealt with Barry kind of trying to discover who he is as a hero, you know, discovering what his abilities are, what his limits are, and who he wants to be, like what he wants to do in terms of being a hero. So last night's episode's basic plot line was we have the character, the villain Multiplex, whose ability is to make copies of himself. He can basically spontaneously clone himself. And he's trying to murder this famous scientist who's kind of like, you know, a douchey corporate businessman scientist. But Multiplex is trying to kill him for personal reasons. And he holds the scientist responsible for the death of his wife. And the Flash has to try and stop Multiplex. But because of Detective Joe West, who feels protective of Barry because he basically raised him, keeps getting into his head and trying to tell Barry, you know, you can't go out there and try to fight crime. You know, you're not a hero. You don't know what can happen. You can die. You can get hurt, so on and so forth, which are all legitimate, you know, concerns. But it leads to Barry self-doubting himself, and that leaves Barry overwhelmed the first time he tries to confront Multiplex because he's doubting what he's capable of, and he's very quickly overpowered. So a lot of the episode has to do with the dynamic between Barry Allen and Detective Joe West, and them kind of coming to an understanding with each other, you know, because Barry kind of resents Joe for always kind of, you know, I guess oppressing him. I don't want to say oppressing because he's not really being oppressed, but like being too overprotective and not letting Barry make mistakes and not letting Barry kind of do what he wants. And at the same time, Joe feels responsible for Barry and wants to make sure that Barry doesn't get hurt. And they kind of have to come to an understanding with each other so that Joe can accept that Barry is capable of taking care of himself, and Barry can accept that Joe really just has Barry's best interest at heart. So that's kind of like the underlying theme of the episode. As far as the story goes, I thought it was very solid. You know, none of it seemed forced. I felt like the confrontation between Flash and the villain was a little bit more cohesive this time around, whereas last time I felt it was kind of rushed and it was kind of anticlimactic. I definitely felt there was more tension in the final confrontation this time around, and Barry kind of had to overcome his limitations in order to defeat Multiplex, and that was handled very well. I like the dynamic of Barry trying to keep his secret from Iris because, you know, he's secretly in love with her, but he also wants to protect her, and he made a promise to Joe West not to get her involved. But we also have the dynamic of Iris is trying to pursue who the Flash is. She wants to find out who the Flash is and what the identity is. So you have that kind of tension going on. But I think the strongest thing so far in this series is with Tom Cavanaugh's character, who, if you're following the clues and you know anything about the Flash mythology, spoilers for those who don't, you know, you might want to stop watching now. But if you know anything about the Flash mythology, I think they're very strongly leaning towards Tom Cavanaugh being Professor Zoom in the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne, but the version of Eobard Thawne who feels guilty for having, you know, killed Flash's mother and ruined Flash's life and all of that stuff, and he's come back in time to atone for his sins and make up for his mistakes and actually help the Flash become who he's supposed to be. And I think Tom Cavanaugh is playing that dynamic very well, especially at the end, the confrontation between his character and the douchey scientist character. That kind of went to an extreme. I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you haven't seen the episode, I'm not going to tell you what he does to protect Flash, but it is very heavy. And it's very much up there with what they do on the Arrow, allowing it to be dark. So, all in all, that's my feelings on The Flash so far. I think it's a very strong series. I think they're doing very well with it. I like how they're touching on the little dynamics of The Flash. Like, for instance, they touched upon how The Flash has to eat a lot of calories to keep his metabolism going. Very, very strong series so far. I'm digging it. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. You should definitely tune in every Tuesday, 8 o'clock on the CW. Great show. C. Monty, checking in for Nerd Era, where nerd culture reigns supreme. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And peace.